Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Well, we're running a simultaneous live stream between here, TikTok, and YouTube. So we're waiting for our YouTube friends to join, which looks like they have. So let me look at my TikTok friends. If you will, guys, I'd appreciate it, as we have discussed before. Our little home rule is that when you join and you want to have a question, just like our YouTube friends, please include your age, gender, and where you're tuning in from. For example, M for male, F for female, then your age, then where you're tuning in from. That gives me a little bit of information about how to address you, at the same time about your age, where you are in the stage of life, and at the same time a little cultural background, knowing where you come from or where you're watching this program from. I'd appreciate it. So, for example, JJ joined. If he or she, I don't know what JJ is, the pictures are very small, female or male, you just put it M or F or however you signify your gender, and then age and where you're tuning in from. That will help me out a lot. I'd appreciate it. And every time you want to continue your question, again, add that code so I know who it is, and I will refresh my memory. Here we have micro aggressor. Oh my goodness. Says, quit smoking, man. Who's smoking? Oh, did you hear about me coughing? No. Something slipped in my throat, and I don't know what the hell it was. I was just eating a few minutes before that. Yeah, it was dangerous, wasn't it? It sounded pretty horrific. No, I'm not a smoker. In fact, I'm very against it. And Thomas is here, says, hello, my question is, Thomas, you're an old timer. What happened with the protocol? Come back with the protocol, even though I know who you are, but I don't remember everything. So, what is it? Florida, are you? Texas? So, and you TikTok friends, please do fire up your questions. If you have a question regarding thoughts, consciousness, fear, desire, ego, having to do with breakups, why you can't go on, or why you're depressed, or what is the inner movement of your psyche that keeps you the way you're making you the way you feel, and how you can move on. And then if you have a question about OCD, a subset of OCD, we discuss the components of the brain involved in that, and how we can use the experts' ways, such as Dr. Schwartz 4-step, to move on and be able to rewire your brain through neuroplasticity and then get it back to its default setting. Repetitive thought, intrusive thoughts, and sexual inclination thoughts that would suggest to you you're something that you're not, and something that you don't prefer to be, never did. These are the glitches of the brain having to do with amygdala, striatum, basal ganglia in the midbrain, and caudate nucleus, and so on and so forth. We'll discuss all these components for you to be able to manage these stage of life that it can hit anyone at any time. It's just a glitch in the brain, and you got to know what it is and how to rewire your brain. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to fire up. In the meantime, I'll go to questions here once I have. All right. Thomas, you are not providing that info. So I'll go to Georgie. Georgie, how about you? You don't have it either. So I'll go to somebody else. I gotta have those. There we go. Georgie says, I'm 23, male. Where from, Georgie? Bulgaria. Okay, very good. 23, male, Bulgaria, is asking, is he asking? It says, gay thoughts don't disgust me as before, and I'm feeling the false attraction. Wish it is false. More immense recently, reading a lot about how and when come out. Been reviewing my past too. Well, for that, I can't make a comment. If that is how you feel, that is how you feel. But if you wish to explore it and to know if these are intrusive thoughts, HOCD, or whatever it is that you feel it is or you think it is, then you got to go on my site, mindthatseekstruth.com, mindthatseekstruth.com. You can make an appointment with me. We'll discuss what's concerning you one-on-one on Skype. Here, I cannot turn it into a one-on-one consultation. And your questions, it's not a question, seems like you've made up your mind, and that, then I don't have anything to say. But if you haven't and you want to investigate and figure out what this whole intrusive thought is, what is this OCD subset, HOCD is, and so on and so forth, then we'll discuss that in detail. And he says, I've been reviewing my past too, and remember to have liked girls before, but now my mind switched the romance towards men, and I'm 23, male, and try to accept that I'm gay, but I can't. If you can't, that means you're not gay, because if you were, you wouldn't even notice that these suggestions are coming through. It would be a brilliant occasion for you. But when you have a question and a reaction towards something that you're not inclined, it's not your preference, then obviously there is a contradiction between your awareness and the brain. And the brain is not you, you're not the brain. Therefore, your awareness is trying to fix the suggestion of the brain. And the contradiction that you get these thoughts, but you are not accepting it, that clearly tells you if you were gay, you would clearly want to accept it. It's not about acceptance, it's the fact that it feels right for you. And when there is a contradiction between the awareness based on your values and your gender and the thoughts and suggestions, then naturally that tells you you're not. And this is HOCD, which you need to understand how to rewire your brain and have it be on default setting. This is not just you. There are millions and millions and millions of people around the world deal with OCD and OCD subsets, all kinds of OCD. And it can hit at any age. It's not about being young or old. Intrusive thoughts and malfunction of the brain, signaling system of the brain happens at any time. And that's because this brain is work in progress. We didn't have this brain until 40,000 years ago. So there was a you for a million years. And then since 40,000 years ago, we got this sophisticated brain, which is very helpful to figure out things, invent things, learn things, and so on and so forth. But he also has his own glitches like any other organ. The problem is when we get to any other organ and we see the glitch, like your intestine gets a diarrhea, you recognize that there's something wrong. You don't accept, oh, I've been a diarrhea all the time. I wanted to be, have an intestine that will produces diarrhea. Or your kidney or your liver. You recognize that it's not functioning as it always did. So then you go find the remedy, go to the doctor and so on. When it comes to brain, you think brain is almighty or it's the intelligence of you, and you accept what the brain says because you think you're the brain. But the brain never existed in your life the way it is until 40,000 years ago. So what happened all those time? We were living on instinctive basis, like animals, running, hunting, sleeping, having sex. No intrusive thoughts, no OCD. Why? Because these are thought producing, these are thought instigating, these have the roots in thoughts. And since we were not able to think or speak, words didn't have meanings, then there were no problems of this sort, no psychological problem that we could understand, at least cognitively. So you need to understand that you're not the brain, brain is not you, and you got to figure out and use the experts' research and laboratory and research such as the neuroscientists and neurosurgeons such as Dr. Sperry, Dr. Penfield, Dr. Libet, Dr. Owens, and their studies shows clearly, beyond the shadow of the doubt, that what Aristotle said 1,000 years ago, now the modern science have proved it, that you're not the brain and brain is not you, and it has its own malfunctions, and you got to figure out help it to rewire itself. All right, having said that, we go on to and Micro is talking to someone. Liam is here. Liam Toronto says, hi, Mehran. Liam, age, please. Don't forget. Liam says, Toronto, hi, Mehran. Been a while. The thoughts are mostly gone, but the one that comes up the most is the thought is I like to give head. But aside that, I'm pretty much recovered. Well, there's no difference of what kind of thought it is. The content of the thought is irrelevant. The fact that there's a glitch in the brain, there is malfunction in the signaling system, it creates all kind of thoughts. So don't worry about the interpretation or the conclusion or the meaning of the thought. It's all HOCD or OCD or intrusive thoughts. It doesn't matter what it suggests or what image it is. It's all about the malfunction of the signaling system of the brain. So don't focus on only these thoughts, only that thought. What do I do with this? All the same, intrusive thought, not in line with your values, it's not your preference, and it's not naturally your gender. Your awareness knows it. That's why you don't accept it. That's why you're annoyed, and you're asking these questions. Otherwise, if it was not the case, you wouldn't even ask the question. You wouldn't even notice there's anything wrong there. For example, if my thoughts shows up to say, "Hey, you're heterosexual and you love girls," I'll say, "Yeah, thank you." And there is no discomfort, there is no surprise. So I'll go on. I don't even notice that this thought here. I say, oh, that's nice. But when you have thoughts that are not in line with your values, and your awareness knows that, and it's contradictory to who you are, your preferences, what you've been, what you prefer to be, then naturally you have a reaction and question. And when you do, well, that's obviously telling you that you're not the brain. Brain is not you. So what the brain is telling you is like somebody in the street say something that you're not interested. So you question, why do you say that? And that is what's happening with most people, if not all people who have OCD or OCD subsets. All right, let's go on to Stevens here. It says male 43, Los Angeles. Thank you for that. That's the proper way of actually letting us know. And Winter says, what is your favorite clone? What the heck does that have to do with anything? Winter, come back next winter. I'll let you know. All right. And thank you for all the TikTok friends who have taken my request and have included their age, gender, and where they're tuning in from. None of you have, for heaven's sake. So guess what? I'm not going to answer any of your questions because. All right. So let's go back to YouTube. And Steven says, listen to your email earlier while walking my dog. Just want to say thanks. You're quite welcome, Stephen. Yeah, that was pretty good recording, I believe, and it should have beat the crap out of your brain and jogged it to come to be yourself. Now, Stephen says, now that I am in my early 40s, being through relationships, I feel I'm starting all over again. So what? I'm starting all over again. If it doesn't suit my standards, it doesn't fit my standards, I'll keep going until I found the girl that has commonalities with my values and interests and activities, energy level, and so on. You shouldn't be choosing a girlfriend just because you need one. Then you'll be assessing them with the eye of the need. And when you use eye of the need to assess a girl, you'll always lose and you'll usually pick wrong. Why? Because eye of the need is talking about your need to cuddle, your need to have sexual relationship, you need to touch that beauty, you need to have intimacy. And there is nowhere in there that you're recognizing the cognitive differences or compatibilities. And you don't focus on values that you have in your consciousness, the content of the consciousness. That is what we are. And if those contents are so different to the point that you can't even compromise or understand each other, well, there'll never be a love there because love happens at the conscious level. The rest of it that you're interested, you become interested in a girl, that's lust. And that is the ignition that gives you enough time to invest time to get to know that girl because you're interested romantically, sexually, and you want to now go further to know what is the compatibility between you two on the conscious level. If that happens, then jackpot. If it doesn't, well, the rest is history. Half a house is gone, your car is gone, your money in the bank is no longer there. If you have gone that far, then you should know. So, in the meantime, continue focusing on trying to evaluate your girlfriend or your girlfriend to be on conscious level, on compatibility, on values, and then activities and energy, and so on and so forth, and plans and goals. And then, of course, it's a gravy point. It's a bonus if she's also meeting and you two meeting each other's aesthetic standards. 11 new messages on TikTok, but none of them are messages, just says joined. And one of them says, what's your, what is it, favorite cologne? I mean, that's as far as TikTok gets. I wonder, TikTok is always getting lots of viewers, but there's not too many questions coming. And don't worry, TikTok friends, and please don't forget to click the like on the program so the algorithm will actually get activated and recognize our channel, and we'll be able to reach more people and help more people. On YouTube channel of mine, we have over 3,000 videos, which you can go in and put a word that you're interested in searching the topic you're looking for on the search engine of my channel, my site, my channel, I guess. And then you'll see what comes out and use it. Things to do with thoughts, consciousness, fear, desire, ego, relationship, breakups, and OCD and OCD subsets. All right, 9 new messages. Shared the live. Thank you very much for sharing the live. I appreciate that. Meat stick, okay? And all right. And Porphyrouz, Professor or Prof Iriozus, I don't know what it is. It says share the live. Thank you for that. Encourage more viewers to share the live. Please share the live, guys, so we can, and girls, so we can get more people joining us. Perhaps we get 1 or 2 questions. So I won't be so useless here. And Meat Stick says, how are your grandchildren doing? Well, is that a compliment, or you're trying to kind of hint that I'm old? Well, I may be old, but I can take you down. All right. And Knockhead says, follow the live creator. Thank you for that. So, Matt, you have liked the live, and I appreciate that 100 times. And and you've also shared the live many times. So I appreciate it. But does it make any difference if it's like so many times or once? Meat says, lol, I was just wondering if you have any grandkids. No, I don't. And the hell with you. I'm still younger than you are. Damn. Don't remind me. In my mind, I'm still 25 years. I just happen to be a little bit over wiser than my age. That's all. Hey, listen, I bet you I squat more than you, and I lift, and I lift deadlift better than you. So hush up. All right. So what do we have here? And we have Miyomote's here. And Giorgio says, so can the brain confuse your fear? Absolutely. Brain is so messed up that according to experiment that Dr. Sperry and Dr. Penfield of Montreal in 1960s did, together they have, each one of them, they have operated on the brain itself maybe over 1,000 times. And when you go into the brain, there is no pain nerve in the brain. So actually, most time, once you go through the skull and that part is done, the brain itself can't feel pain. So they had their patients often awake to guide them to the localization that they were experimenting. They were able to localize a motoring system. For example, they could stimulate part of the brain and they could localize the motoring section. Some limb would move, or they could localize a sight center and they would stimulate somewhere in the occipital point, and there would be some kind of a light that the patient would say, I see a little brightness in my eyes. Or they would be able to localize speech center. They would do something and the person would make some noise or some uttering. But they could never localize compassion center. They could never localize consciousness center. They could never localize math center. They could never localize political center. They were never able to localize any intelligence center. So the brain is not your smarts. Brain is dumb as it comes, is just a machine that makes thoughts. That's its job. It produces thoughts 80, 90,000 times a day. And you're not going to be interpreting every one of them to figure out what it means. There's a message for me or not. No, it's just what it is. And you shouldn't be thinking about the intrusive thoughts meaning anything other than a malfunction of the brain that is focusing on something, in some ways, is trying to save you, alarm you, but it's overdoing it because the amygdala is overactive. And many other reasons that we can talk about it. If you guys are interested, you go on my site, mindthatseekstruth.com, mindthatseekstruth.com, and we'll discuss what's concerning you one-on-one on Skype. And Matt Six says, I don't think so, bro. I'm a national state champion now in boxing. You can search me out. It doesn't matter. When you start boasting about yourself in this way, that means you've got blind spots. So anyhow, more power to you. But unknowingly trying to challenge, or make fun of someone like me, that's a mistake because you have no idea what my background has been. So let's stick with the science here. If you have any questions, please fire up. If you don't, well, then you can easily choose another channel because I'm not here getting engaged with your interests. I'm here to discuss what the interests of mine is in sharing some science and some philosophical point of view and help people to deal with their challenges. So meat stick, I was right. Then you're a troll because your attitude is now disrespectful. And what you're saying is no longer respected here. So let me see if I can mute you. All right. Okay, so we dealt with our friend who is no longer able to see this program. And Simi joined. Hello, Simi. Thank you for joining. Let's see what we have here. Miyamoto is here from YouTube. You know, we never had a troll. It's the first time we had on TikTok. We've had him on YouTube years ago, but we haven't had it for a long time. And this was a surprise. Miyamoto says, hi, how are you? Thank you, Miyamoto. Says, M18 from India. Thank you. Male 18 from India. Says, do short, what? Do shorts live it? Will help your channel? I don't understand. Well, I'm making lots of shorts for YouTube, and the shorts go on in a day or two, about 2,500 viewers. So it's pretty good in helping people to get to know that this channel exists. Otherwise, out of 13 years, we have only 28,000 subscribers. And when they find our channel, they swear by it, but we are difficult to be found. Somehow I'm doing something wrong, the tags or whatnot, but nevertheless, we're here. And we've helped millions of people around the world, and we're delighted in that. But we hope to be able to reach more people and help more people. And Miyamoto says it will be recommended to people who are scrolling. Yeah, we've got lots of shorts coming in, and it's been there. And Miyamoto says, from now, I will not try to ignore these thoughts. I will let them in, and they can stay in my head as long as they want. There you go. And you just focus on the 4 steps of Dr. Schwartz: relabel, reframe, refocus, and revalue. And you have a video on this on my channel that explains all these steps and how to use them, what it means, and how to implement them. So you go on my site and put in 4 steps, just 4, number 4, and steps. And Dr. Schwartz's 4 steps comes, and based on his explanations, I've made this video so you can be clear how to use his 4 steps. And Miyamoto says, if I try to ignore them, they will appear. Yeah, that's right. You don't resist, and you don't fight with it, or you don't try to decimate them, or delete them or anything, because they've got no power. You're the only person in the world that can ever allow any thought ever become an actuality. So the thought itself has no power. It can be annoying because it's contradictory to your values, and so that's what it's just like. You're walking in the street and somebody utters some words that's unbecoming to you, or it's just profanities and whatnot. But you don't go out and try to take down anybody who's being nasty. You just move on about your business. You got to deal the same way with your brain. Just go about your business. Britha Braho is here. Brua is here. It's male 35, India. Says, can you suggest some great books knowing the brain and its function and how to make sensible decisions in life, even in hard times? Well, listen, if you want to gather information about brain, you got to study Aristotle, you got to study Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti. He was a pioneer of understanding inner movement of the psyche. You got to study many of the psychological point of views and philosophical point of views, neuroscientists and neurosurgeons, experiments and so on. And you can Google that. You can find excerpts and educate yourself on that. There's no one book that can have all that information that you're looking for. And Gassner is here. Says, so Gassner, if you remember, we needed your gender, age, and where you're tuning in from before I can answer your question. I need to know if you're male, female, or however you signify your gender. I like to know how old you are, and that will tell me if you can be here and if I would like to engage in discussion with you. And I also would like to know what country you're watching this program, so that gives me a little information about your background, your cultural background, so I would be able to connect with you better. While you're going to do that for me, I'm going to read your question. It says, so if you say that the brain doesn't feel pain, then why can't they operate until child is older? That's got nothing to do with the pain. It's not about the pain, because if there were painful limbs or painful parts of the body, they always use anesthetics and they deal with that. It's basically because they want, and of course, you got to ask the expert. I'm not an expert in brain surgery, but my common sense is that they are expecting the brain to have its own development to the point that is no longer is going to affect its expansion or its function if they make any changes. So they let it grow and let it develop itself. And once it has developed, then it can endure such operations a little bit better. The child itself can endure better. The healing would be different than while the child is still not mature enough to go through under such surgeries. All right. Al says, you got that dog. I don't know who Al is talking about. And Gashner says, doing brain surgery until infant or 5-6 months. All right. I'm not expert in that, Gashner, so you may want to ask a brain surgeon in regard to that. All right. And Breatho says, I mean, some practical book like the one You Are Not Your Brain. You mean the video You're Not Your Brain, the one that you watched, the one that I have on my site. So that's 45 minutes. There's a book on sale. It's got lots of information there. You're talking about the one by Jeffrey Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz. That's a brilliant book. I don't know of any other one like that, but there is an article written by Dr. Philipson. It's a brilliant article. It's called Choice. If you search that for Dr. Philipson, Choice, you might, it's a long writing, but you may actually find it very helpful in understanding the OCD and OCD subsets, such as HOCD and so on. Gashner, as I mentioned, I'm not expert in that department. But as you know, the brain seams are open, especially when you're a child. So perhaps they figure that would be risky, or it would alter some kind of a development later. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps you might want to Google it, and that might help you out. Miyamoto says, I was suggesting you to do short live streams. Short live streams. Yeah, well, by the time we get everybody showing up and ask a few questions, it's already half an hour. In 1 hour, we only have like maybe 10 questions here. And if it's up to our TikTok friends, we'll have no questions here, just trolling and challenging. That's pretty much what it is tonight. Usually it's been very good. But Miyamoto says, I was suggesting you do the short lives, lives, and you are doing video live stream right now. Yeah, that's right. And I can do short ones, but 15 minutes is not really interesting to anyone. Nobody gets a chance to ask anything. But we hope that these live streams will help to populate and help some people if they have any questions. All right, guys, we need some fresh questions. Otherwise, I can do other things and make videos or watch a movie. How about that? Navid Khan says, I now live alone. Navid, don't forget the protocol. Gender, age, where are you tuning in from? Could you kindly adhere to this request? And while I read your question, says, I now live alone, and sometimes I keep wanting to get back together for the third time to end loneliness. Ah, that's the eye of the need. Uh, if your motivation to get back with your girlfriend or boyfriend or however one's situation is, then you're not really choosing a partner. You're just trying to satisfy your desire for pleasure. And that means your partner, in fact, you're trying to satisfy yourself. You're not really trying to be either compromising or compatible with someone to be your partner. You are setting yourself up for a disaster because you're only focusing on the pleasure they're going to be receiving from that relationship rather than focusing on what you can give, what you can receive, and how you can compromise, how you can build something there. If there's not going to be anything built in that relationship, then that relationship is going to be short lived anyhow. So you cannot use loneliness as your reason to look for a girlfriend. Um, it's a disrespect and dishonesty to that girl. At the same time, to yourself, you're not doing yourself justice because you're just trying to, you know, get your urge away. You feel lonely. It doesn't mean that you're going to be disrespectful to her, but you're focusing on your need, not on a relationship that would work for both of you to have a future and build something. And David says 40 male USA. Thank you for that. And so I suggest you figure out the assessment of the girlfriend that you want to get to know should be based on compatibility on the consciousness level, because then that would have a chance for a duration longer than just the as soon as the pleasures ends. You got to get to know each other better. Sex can wait for about a month at least until you guys really, have some kind of a interaction, intelligent interaction, activities, and then you want to go further and bond, and then that's when the intimacy can come to the picture. And says, I can only remember good times, but I was very sensitive to her mood and she would hit me. Oh my goodness. You never want to be with any woman who actually hits you. You're supposed to be very careful and protective of women and children and never ever raise your hand on them. And for the same token, if they do the same, then that is not tolerable. You got to break that relationship and move on because that's very disrespectful. And if someone wants to deal with frustrations or incompatibility by violence, where is it going to end? That's not going to be good. And I can only remember the good times. Well, you can only remember the good times because the brain is built in that way. Human being psyche is built in that way to not focus on the bad times. They always go for the pleasure um, instances. So, in other words, you will be selecting pleasurable moments, selected pleasurable moments. But that's not representation of the entirety of that relationship. You have selected the pleasure parts of your relationship, which is a natural way for human being. We always try to forget the pain and remember the pleasure. And this is exactly why when women give birth to a child, it's one of the most painful things you've ever experienced, as I've heard, and they equalize it to kidney stone pain. And I had kidney stone pain. That was severely painful. And they say giving birth is worse than that. So imagine that. Even though she goes through such a painful experience, yet a month or two later, she's ready to get pregnant again. Why? Because she forgets. We are designed, programmed to forget about the bad things. And so naturally, when you had a bad experience and bad relationship, when it's over and those bad things are not happening anymore, you'd be naturally focusing on the good part of the relationship and say, why did I break up? She was so sweet, because you're thinking about the pleasurable corners of that relationship. And that's a mistake. All right. Miyamata says, it's been 10 days since I've quit porn. I can see improvement in my life. Yes, you can. And also you will have more respect for the girls, and you wouldn't be seeing any girl walking there and thinking that, oh, she's ready to have, some go. That's the effect of the porn. And you will lose that sensitivity toward intimacy, and you will not really choosing for a relationship. You'll be just focusing on um, that bonus one. And Navid Khan says, she was abusive, hit me all the time. I ended it this time. I respect myself too much. I cannot believe that you actually did not break it up sooner. Remember, regardless of how, she behaves, she hits you or what, you never hit a woman back. You never hit the woman back. I say it again, you never hit the woman or children back. Now, if they are excessive and dangerous, like they've got a knife in their hand or something, you got to defend yourself naturally. But you don't overdo it, and you don't aim to retaliate. You best thing is to move out of that situation, out of that room, out of that house, and move on and never look back. That would be the way to handle it, or call the authorities and so on. And she says, I ended it this time. I respect myself too much. Okay. My brain easily deletes these times. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes. Okay. So I never did proud of myself. My father was abusive in that way. I'm glad I don't have that in me. Well, you can always make the right decision by never, ever raising your hands on women. We men are there to protect women and children. If you don't have things in common, if you can't have a good relationship, just break up, go on your way, but do not try to dominate in that way to get your way or to force them to do anything. No, that's not manly. All right. Miyamata says women have all the rights now in this world, but they still think there is gender inequality. Well, everything has its own limits. If any woman is trying to harm you, you need to move away from that relationship. That's for sure. All right. And we have no question in TikTok. Now, okay, we have answered all the questions, and we don't have any more. And it's been over 1 hour. It's time for me to say I love you all. Thank you very much for being here, giving me the opportunity to share a thing or two with you. I look forward to our next live stream. In the meantime, don't forget to like the program, all of you, YouTube and TikTok. In the meantime, be good to yourself and to the others. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Subscribe on my channel, visit my channel, and go through the videos that you might be interested in. Mind@seekstruth.com is making it one step away to talk to me one-on-one on Skype and discuss what's concerning you. I'll talk to you soon.